Crespo is going to be hosting for Let's Talk Football the Round Table. And Let's Talk Football ladies.
Hey. Hello, Let's Talk Football fans. Delilah Crespo here with another episode of Diversity with Delilah. All right, so today I'm going to talk to you about former quarterback Doug Williams, who's known as the first Black quarterback to star and win a Super Bowl. So let's go through his journey and how he got there. So he's born and raised from Louisiana. He attended Grambling State University, an HBCU. Williams guided the Tigers to a 36-7 record as a 4-year starter while he was there. He led the Tigers to 3 Southwestern Athletic Conference championships. He was also named Black College Player of the Year twice while he attended. In 1977, Williams led the NCAA in several categories, including total yards from scrimmage, passing yards, touchdown passes, and yards per play. Williams finished 4th in the Heisman Trophy voting behind Earl Campbell, Terry Miller, and Ken McAfee. Williams actually graduated from Grambling with a BA in education. He was working on his master's degree before the 1978 NFL draft. So, as we know, HBCUs are, unfortunately, scouts don't really go to HBCUs. Think about the 70s was even worse, right? And we still don't have a lot of scouts that go out to HBCUs to check out players. But at this point, Joe Gibbs, who at this time was not the famous coach yet for Washington, right? He led Washington to a lot of victories later on. But before that, he was actually offensive coordinator for Tampa. Joe Gibbs was the only person who actually went to check out Williams. So Joe Gibbs spent 2 days with Doug, reviewing playbooks, film, going through passing drills. Impressed by his poise, work ethic, studious nature, Gibbs rated Williams as the best quarterback in the draft, writing in his scouting report that Williams had a big-time arm with perfect passing mechanics and was a natural leader, very academic, and extremely prepared, football smart, and recommended that the Bucs select Williams with their first-round draft choice. So here we go. Tampa Bay drafted Williams in the first round, 17th overall in the 1978 NFL draft. Williams became the first Black quarterback taken in the first round of an NFL draft at the time. Doug was also the first QB Buccaneer in Buccaneer history capable of throwing long passes downfield. Again, we're looking in the 1970s, okay? So, in a 1978 game against the Chicago Bears, Williams and Bears quarterback at the time, Vince Evans, made history by making it the first NFL game at the time to ever start 2 Black quarterbacks on both teams. Author Jason Reed, who wrote the book Rise of the Black Quarterback, shared a story about Doug Williams that Doug Williams shared with him. He said, unsurprisingly, that Doug Williams faced a lot of racism from fans and even from people on his own coaching staff in Tampa. Quarterback coach Bill Nelson at the time was berating Doug Williams. Coach Gibbs, who again was the offensive coordinator, saw that this was becoming more personal, that it wasn't about helping improve Doug as a quarterback, right? It wasn't being supportive. It was berating beyond coaching, and it became personal attacks. So Coach Gibbs, seeing this, he was on the opposite side of the field, sprinted over and got in Nelson's face, okay? He said that he should never, ever, ever treat him that way again. So Joe Gibbs, already, showing character as a coach and a leader, got in another coach's face saying, hey, don't you ever talk to him like that again. Is that clear? Since that point in time, when Doug Williams was in Tampa, Nelson never confronted him like that in that manner again. During his time with the Bucs, Williams was paid $120,000 a year. At this time, that was the lowest salary for a starting QB in the league. Feeling that owner Culverhouse was not paying him enough as a starter should earn, Williams actually sat out as protest during the 1983 season. That year, the Bucks went 2-14 and would not make the playoffs again until the 1997 season, which was 14 years later. Why? Because tired of sitting out, Doug Williams actually signed in 1984 with the Oklahoma Outlaws when, as we now know, the United States Football League has had a resurgence, but this was the first time that it actually tried to become a legitimate league, was in the 80s. So Williams signed a $3 million contract with them with a $1 million signing bonus, making him easily one of the highest paid players in all of football at that time. Years later, Doug says that the Outlaws won him over because the owners, William Tatum Sr. and Bill Tatum Jr., actually treated him like a human being rather than a piece of cattle in a stockyard. So he felt that they actually treated him like a man, right? And they showed him the respect he deserved. In 1986, when the USFL shut down, Williams went back to the NFL, this time joining the then Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. He was reunited with his former offensive coordinator, Joe Gibbs, who was now the team's head coach. Now, Doug Williams didn't automatically start as a starter. He actually served as backup for starting QB Jay Schroeder. Him and Jay Schroeder had a tenuous relationship, they were saying, because Williams had to step in whenever Schroeder got injured. And there was a time where people thought Schroeder went down. And so Williams was sent out to take over. And Schroeder basically was like, "What are you doing here? Get off the field," right? Yelled at him to get off the field. And so, they had a little contentious kind of relationship. So again, there were a few times that Williams did step in. So Williams stepped in and led Washington to an opening day victory against the Philadelphia Eagles in the 1987 season. 3 times in 87, Williams had to substitute for Schroeder because, again, Schroeder had injuries, and led the team to victory. The other 2 were November 15 against Detroit and December 26 at Minnesota. Williams only started 2 games. Again, this was when Schroeder's. So again, he did substitution a few times, and then only twice in 87 did Williams actually start. That was September 20th at Atlanta and November 23rd against the Rams. While both those starts were losses, however, when they counted the numbers at the end of the years, right, when Washington qualified for the playoffs that year or that season, Williams' passer rating was 94. And so that's why so the few times, think about that, the few times that Williams got a chance to start either as a substitute where he went in or started, his passer rating was better than Schroeder's. It was 94. So they decided to move on at that point in the playoffs with Williams. He led the team to Super Bowl 22, in which they routed the Denver Broncos. Sorry, Tina, I know that's your team. Again, becoming the first Black quarterback to both play in and win a Super Bowl. The day before Super Bowl 20, this is how the story goes, Williams had a 6-hour root canal surgery performed to repair a dental bridge. And still, let me tell you, I've had a root canal, and that's really painful. So then on January 31st, 1988, he engineered a 42-10 beatdown over the Broncos, who were led by, at that time, led by John Elway. Williams completed 18 of 29 passes for 340 yards with 4 touchdown passes. All 4 touchdowns were thrown in the second quarter, which at the time set a Super Bowl record for most touchdowns thrown in a single half, let alone a quarter. He was also named Super Bowl MVP for his efforts, making him the first Black player to win a Super Bowl and be named its MVP as well. He broke the Super Bowl single game record of 331 yards, which he beat at that time. It's kind of interesting. So he broke the Super Bowl single game record of 331 passing yards set in 1985 by Joe Montana. However, Joe Montana went back and broke Williams' record that following year with 357. So for a few years, he and Doug kind of went back and forth there with records. At the time of Super Bowl 22, Williams tied Super Bowl single game record for passing touchdowns set by Terry Bradshaw in 1979. Joe Montana broke both Williams and Terry Bradshaw's record in Super Bowl 24 when he surpassed 5. So Doug Williams is in good company, okay? He set some Super Bowl records where he tied Terry Bradshaw, beat Joe Montana. Joe Montana got that back, but let me tell you, that's pretty great company for Williams to be in. Williams' 80-yard scoring pass to Ricky Sanders tied the Super Bowl record for longest pass set, which was Jim Plunkett's throw to Kenny in 1981. So he tied that. It was broken in 1997 by Brett Favre, when Brett Favre threw an 81-yard pass to Antonio Freeman for the longest Super Bowl play from scrimmage. So again, let me tell you, Williams' Super Bowl time there was pretty great, okay? Sadly, the following seasons, Williams suffered from a lot of injuries and got outplayed by, at that time, backup quarterback Mark Rypien. Eventually, he won that starting job, but they actually had a good relationship. So despite competing for the starting job, Williams and Rypien were supportive of each other. They wore each other's T-shirts with the caption, "United We Stand," depicting the two QBs as two cartoon characters, Williams saying, "I'm for Mark," and Rypien saying, "I'm for Doug." So at least for the end of Williams' tenure as a quarterback with Washington, was not in bad spirits at all. So Williams would play one final season in 1989 as Rypien's backup. So again, here you have Doug Williams. He made, again, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. He also made the PFWA All-Rookie team in 1978. He is Washington Commanders' 90 Greatest. He also is in Washington Commanders' Ring of Fame. He's also in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor. He is in Tampa Stadium Crew of Honor as well. After playing in the NFL, Doug moved to coaching. I think a lot of you probably know that, of course, Washington fans and Tampa fans who probably followed Doug's career. But he began his collegiate head coaching career at Morehouse College in 97. He was named the head football coach at Grambling State University in 98, succeeding legendary Eddie Robinson. He led the Tigers to 3 consecutive Southwestern Athletic win titles from 2000 to 2002 before he left to rejoin Tampa, but as a personal executive. So then he left coaching, and then now he went more into the executive parts of football, into operations. In February 2014, Williams rejoined Washington as a personal executive. The hiring marked really, at that time, Williams returned to Washington. Williams was promoted to position of Senior Vice President of Player Personnel in June 2017. In 2020, following a front office restructure after the hiring of Ron Rivera as head coach, Williams was named as the team's Senior Vice President of Player Development. The following year, he became the senior advisor to team president Jason Wright. Now, that's all I have so far. I know there's new ownership in Washington, so I don't know if that means they shifted Doug out. But as far as I know, he's still an executive for the team. I couldn't find any difference right now, any changes for that. So anyway, there you have it. Doug Williams, the first Black QB to start and win a Super Bowl, but also to win a Super Bowl MVP as well. So, all right, until next time, have a wonderful week, everybody.
Yeah.